So, welcome back to the Raising Our Vibration podcast, where we explore higher consciousness through spiritual practice. And today we're going to explore the topic that we call 3 Secrets for Radical Transformation. And this has come up with our teaching of subtle energy meditation as people are guided by us into meditative experiences and either feel or don't feel what we're guiding. And the question is, what determines the impact that a spiritual practice or a spiritual experience has on consciousness? So what determines if it's deeply felt, if it's radically transformative, if it stays with you, or if it's transient? What are the factors that determine that? And knowing that, if we can kind of become aware of what those factors are, can we use the insights from that to go deeper in our practice and have our practice be more spiritually transforming and transformative of consciousness? So to start today, I'm just going to put out 3 headers, and then we're going to go more deeply into each of these. So the first aspect we're going to talk about is priming. Okay, so priming can be either spontaneous or intentional in terms of what happens prior to the experience that helps to open it up. Okay, so how is the experience primed in consciousness? Number 2 is recognition. What helps us to recognize an experience that we're having? And that may seem funny to say, but we often experience that people have what we can feel from them is a really deep experience, but for some reason, they're not really recognizing it. It's not really having the impact that we would think it would have. Like we're saying, yes, exactly that. And we're excited about it. We're more excited about it than they are. And then we wonder, why aren't they recognizing that aha moment? Why isn't it a deep aha for them? So recognition is 2. And then 3 is integration. So what can you do after a recognition, after an aha moment, so that it really sinks in, so that it really becomes a part of your baseline state of consciousness, so it becomes something that lasts and sustains and builds and grows from that moment. So with that as an intro, Stephen, I've been reading this neurotheology book by Andrew Newberg, and he talks about his research with people who have aha moments and deep recognitions that really transform their consciousness. So he talks about this idea of the impact that an experience has. So I'll pass it over to you to share a little bit about Dr. Newberg's research.
Yeah, Kevin, thank you, and love and blessings to everybody on this beautiful day. And I think when we look at impact, I'm sure you're aware around the world at the moment there are many events that impact us strongly, and they're often external events, right? We're very present to the fact that external things, physical, emotional, mental, and otherwise, actually impact strongly our day-to-day experience. So Kevin and I have been looking at how does that inner experience impact you as well? And this was exactly the subject of the studies that Andrew Newberg did in terms of mystical experience, and particularly in terms of transformation. Now, when you consider inner experiences, so I'm sure some of you who are listening, you can go back to a time perhaps in childhood or teenage years or adult years where something happened. Maybe you had an awakening experience, or you had a sudden moment where you recognized something. You didn't know where it came from, but it came out of the blue. Or you're out in nature and you had something happen, and you just suddenly recognized the unity with all things. Or you surrendered to something much larger than yourself, or you had a direct experience of something that was beyond what you could describe in words. Now, so those kind of transformational experiences Andrew Newberg speaks about, and particularly the transformational effect itself. So he points to the fact that it's not so much related to the experience itself, but to the impact or after effect. So Kevin and I were really questioning this quite deeply. You know, what is it, for example, if you're a teacher or a guider or you're a healer, what is it about your guidance or about the practices that you do or about the personal practices you do when you have a particular moment and it impacts strongly? What allows that to stay? Quite often, as Kevin was describing, people will meditate, they have an aha, and then it's just dismissed after a few moments as being, oh, okay, well, so something happened. I saw a light, I felt something powerful, but there's no further real deep recognition beyond that. So we looked particularly at this, and I was really interested in it in terms of Andrew Newberg's research, because he mentioned that this transformative element, so a transformative element, particularly one that has long-lasting effects, is how he defines not only the mystical experience, but defines this enlightening opportunity. In other words, if you have an aha, but you simply either don't recognize it or it really doesn't impact you in any way, then it's almost like you brush over something that could be of vital importance in your life. So you might want to consider right now as I'm speaking some of those times in your life, maybe even jot them down. If something comes to mind during your childhood where you think, oh, that was a really good insight that I haven't thought about for years, or teenage years, suddenly something happens and you recognize it, but you kind of put it aside because of those kind of adolescent formative years and the way that happens, or in your adult years when you have those experiences. So consider those, maybe jot down a few of them so that you can actually look at them quite closely and revisit them. So that's the first thing. And really that's partly what Kevin's speaking about in terms of priming, is that you want to really be open to that opportunity for those aha moments. And in fact, by revisiting or recalling them, sometimes what happens is you can begin to reawaken that aha experience. So in Andrew Newberg's study, they asked people to rate how different aspects of their life had changed, and 90% of the respondents in his particular study said that was the most important. That was, in a way, what helped them to really notice this experience is something changed, something dramatically changed. Their lives changed for the better. There were improvements in their spirituality. They began to feel more unity. They didn't feel so radically different from everybody else. They had more profound understanding. It didn't seem to be based on any dogma or belief or religious tradition. The intensity and power of the recognition of that particular experience actually tied them into a realm that felt spiritual and somewhat beyond any specific object-based or subject-object-based religious or belief system. So it seemed to go beyond belief and beyond religion. I found this really a very curious study in that sense, and in terms of wanting to look at how we might be able to apply this, each of us personally. So as I said, priming is first, just as Kevin has pointed out, that priming and noting times in your life when this has happened. So for example, so Kevin, I know, has had this incredible desert experience where he was out in nature and able to recognize directly awareness and be able to marinate in it for a period of time. So in a way, that experience helped him to experience both the priming and the aha and then the integration, because he was in the desert, all at the same time. Now, we're not quite often, this is, one of the things Kevin and I have considered is that quite often after our meditations, we've got busy, we've got a busy workplace, or we're back in family life, and all the kind of subject object references of our life pull us back into it. So the opportunity to have some space and time afterwards for reflection or integration is really, really crucial. All right, and then the other part of this is that second component, the aha, or the recognition. Like, how do you know? We have millions of experiences, day upon day, week upon week, that as Deepak Chopra said, 60,000 thoughts a day that are a repeat of what we had yesterday. So if you consider that, there's 60,000 aha opportunities, right? They really are 60,000 opportunities to recognize again and again what's occurring. Now, so how do you determine that any one of those aha moments is going to be stickable, or how do you determine that? So one of the things I'll give you an example of one of those, and I call it kind of a happy place, or a peaceful place, or a serene place, is that, and I'll give you an example. So I was in a session. I do a lot of sessions with clients from all manner and aspects of the planet, from CEOs to healers to mums and dads to people that are struggling with bills to people who have health problems. And one of the things I always guide them back to are these moments of recognition sometime in their life, and to actually recognize that again. So to take the opportunity and the time with me to recognize that moment, and then to integrate it by returning to it again and again and again, and then solving our problems from this space of serenity, or love, or tranquility, or openness, or peace, or spacious awareness. So a particular client that I had, she had been on a retreat, and she'd been on a retreat with a very famous person. And this had happened years and years ago in a particular country where she was out in the wilds on this retreat in a very beautiful natural place. And she had that experience that I'm sure many of you can relate to, that where she was just by herself out in this natural place, sort of halfway through the retreat. And she was just sitting there, and she suddenly had an insight. She was looking at all these beautiful animals, and she suddenly had an insight that this was exactly the place that she could die in that moment. If she died in that moment, she'd be perfectly happy. She really, and she started to cry, and it was really moving for both me and for her, because I could really feel deeply into this deep knowing that we all have, that we want to be in that place of incredible serenity and peace and openness to all of life, right? That when we're in that place where it really doesn't matter what the next moment brings, because we're absolutely present and bringing presence, and we're sitting in that richness and the beauty of that present moment, then everything feels in order, right? There's nothing you've got to do at that time and place. And there's also no meditator, and there's no meditation. There's just simply isness or suchness. So she re-experienced that with me, and then she shared with me how she was having lots of difficulties, so for example, it could be in your relationship or health or your business. So what I asked her to do was, every time she started to bring up a tension or something that was grabbing her, is to bring this sense of this happiness, this place that she'd felt where she could die in that moment, that kind of absolute aha and recognition, because it was a deeply moving recognition. That was how she recognized it. And bring that like a mother would to a baby, right? So you have a tension in your life, and you bring this beautiful sense of all-encompassing love or compassion or gentleness or devotion or care or spaciousness to whatever it is, whatever tension it is. And she then had a number of other recognitions, because what happened was when she brought up the tension, and she brought up the tension in that place. So I actually guided her to go back to that retreat and bring up the tension itself. And Kevin and I do this practice actually in our raising our vibration uh, subtle energy meditation groups, is I got her to tell me what it looked like. Now, quite often this part of you, this tension, right, whatever it is. So let's say you've got tension around health or business or your relationship, because they're most common. I got her to tell me what color, shape, size, or whatever. And for many people, it appears like a part, like it's like a little child. It's a little part of you. And she said that's what happened. This little child appeared to her. And so she brought the little child, a bit like a mother would with a child. She brought this little child with her while we're talking. She brought that little child with her into that beautiful meditation place, that retreat. And she sat. And of course, it was very moving, because the moment that you give your attention the opportunity just to be with you, to be in exactly that situation, because as I pointed out, the very moment that you're in a beautiful place where you feel like you could die, you can live or die, it doesn't matter, then you actually end up giving exactly that same opportunity to your attention, right? You actually allow your attention to rise and give your attention that same beautiful opportunity just to be with you and to live or die. And in fact, her attention wanted to play, because quite often our attentions are pushed down, right? It's sort of like we give all these areas of our life, like the playful, beautiful sides of ourselves, lots of expression, and we go out there and we feel wonderful. But as soon as we start to feel tension, we push the tension down, and it's a genuine part of ourselves, right? It's a genuine part of ourselves that we haven't actually embraced, like a mother and a child would, or a mother and a baby would. And then, of course, the flip side happens, because when the tension's allowed to reveal itself, the tension, like a baby, instantly recognizes the mother. It instantly knows that it wants to be in that place of serenity or peace or spaciousness, right? It wants space, it wants to breathe. And that's what she discovered, is that, of course, this was also incredibly overwhelming and brought an instant aha. So there was aha compounded all from this space of this original aha. So a lot of the times that's how I work with all of you great, wonderful souls, is just simply to remind you of, in a way, just as Kevin said, I prime people, we get into a meditative space so we can be open to the aha. Then I reignite the aha moment from the past, just like this, sitting in a retreat where you totally experience being able to live or die in that moment. And then you, from that space, you allow all the other areas of your life which have been causing you tension or difficulty to arise, and you sit with them. You literally allow them to sit with you in whatever shape or form they do. Sometimes for some people they arise as shapes. It might be a dark shape or a dark color or a dark temperature, or it might even have a dark message. For other people, they arrive like children, and so you can work with the child like that. For some other people, they arrive like demons or dragons or goddesses even. They can arrive in what we would call positive shapes or negative shapes. And the key is just to be aware of them, and not to be afraid, but actually genuinely to give them space. And that's where spacious awareness comes in. These skills are so crucial for us to allow ourselves to offer space to whatever difficulties might arise. So that's how that's just an example of how practically you could approach your whatever's happening in your life, and allow it space and allow it to sit with you. And I do love that, particularly love this metaphor. I had never really thought about it, but I think this particular person struck a chord that, it could be pretty much universal, that we would all love to come and sit at a retreat with all our tensions and adversities and obstacles, and put them all alongside us and just sit and give them exactly the same opportunity as we've taken to make all that effort to go and be on retreat in another country with a master. We don't want just the part of ourselves that knows how to meditate. We actually want all of those parts, all of the tensions and obstacles, to sit right alongside us and to allow them the same opportunity. So, Kevin, I'm going to pass back to you for some more elaboration on those beautiful, 3 pointers of priming and recognition and integration. But that was just a little sharing on perhaps how any of our listeners might be able to apply some of these practically.
Yeah, beautiful example, and that goes right back to the importance of openness, right? And the way we relate to our experiences. And if we're, so often in spiritual practice, we're aiming for a specific thing that we want, a specific state. And then when something else comes up, we feel tension, or our mind's busy, or we feel ourselves grinding on some issue. Instead, we feel like our practice has failed, right? But if we can bring that sense of openness and welcoming, and just like you said, that mother welcoming and holding a child, if we can bring that attitude, that's priming, right? If we prime ourselves with an attitude of openness and self-compassion and kindness and gentleness in our practice towards everything that arises, because really our deepest ahas are hidden in our deepest tensions, right? Our deepest traumas are covering over the gifts that are offered in those traumas. So with priming, just think of openness. Think of an openness that is soft and welcoming and gentle to everything that arises in your spiritual practice. Everything when you sit down to meditate, have that intention to welcome everything in this space of awareness. And that primes you for whatever to arise to be a portal to a deeper recognition, right? To a real aha moment. And so that requires some setting aside of what we think we want, some setting aside of our habitual mindset, because our habitual mindsets tend to be oriented towards a certain way of thinking about what we like and what we don't like, and who we are and who we're not, and so on. But those narrowly defined boundaries are what are inhibiting these deep aha moments, right? So we can prime our practice by just having an initial intention of openness, of welcoming, and noticing whatever arises. And then in that really deep paying attention, loving attention to what arises in our practice, all sorts of new possibilities can arise, right? And as you said, with that one person you were working with, when she was in that space of deep peace, and when she had recalled that and embodied that again, she was able to solve all the different tensions, just not because she was analytically figuring it out, but because she was in this space of openness in which life energy, the intelligence of this body, heart, mind, this awareness of life itself is flowing through and working through all the tensions and working through all the issues, because whatever is a tension or an issue is life itself attempting to work something out, right? Attempting to come to a new place. And so to come to a new place, we need to have a new relationship with all of that arises. And then so there's those recognitions arise in openness. And then finally, it's that time to integrate. And we're all so busy in life, and it's natural. If we have a spiritual practice, it's natural to be trying to fit that in to a certain time frame. And so it's probably pretty common that you finish a meditation and you're going to rush right off to everything else that you have to do. But what makes an aha moment, a recognition moment stick, is being able to kind of marinate in that. And like as you did with this client, you were able to bring her back to it again and again, right? And say, okay, with this tension, now bring that open-hearted awareness to this, and sit with it and be with it and come back to it and contemplate it, and take time to, maybe at the end of your practice, when you have some deeper sense of peace or relaxation or some insight, to project that out into your life, into moments that are upcoming in your day, and say, okay, what would happen if I brought this into that meeting that I have at 10:30 this morning? What would happen if, and just project yourself into that and bring that there and be present as that in that situation. And so then you're priming that situation to be a situation that could be one of insight and one of aha and one of cooperation and one of flow and success. So what do you do to prime yourself? How do you put yourself in an open space, right? So it could be going in nature. It could be doing some exercise. It could be doing something different, doing a new practice, anything that kind of breaks up or shakes up your normal mindset and puts you in a place of more openness and curiosity and wonder. And then pay attention closely for those moments of tension or moments of insight, and welcome all of them. Welcome all of them. And as you marinate in that, as you sit with that, then allow them to deeply affect your body, heart, and mind, your consciousness. And finally, to carry them into life and have an intention. It's not just meditation practice for 30 minutes or whatever it is. This is a moment in my life where I connect with this deeper awareness so that I can bring it into each moment of my life, and bring that into your day. And then finally have a practice of that, so that this isn't something that's a one-off, but this is something that we do every day. We're connecting in with this vast awareness that we are, and bringing that into each day and each moment.
Beautiful, Kevin. Beautiful. I do, on just 2 points of things that we've discussed related to this. One is what makes that aha experience. And, what if every experience were an aha experience, right? There's that, because quite often what we've noted, with many of our practitioners, and also I've noticed myself in many of the sessions that people come to me for, is there's an experience somewhere out there, some location that people are trying to get to, that they compare where they currently are with where somebody else is. It could be a master, it could be this person or that person. Somebody else has had an experience that they deem as better or more advanced or deeper than what their current experience is, and they want to get from this location to that location. Now, so even in that, the curious part about that, of course, is that it's not where you're going to that actually is the point that could liberate you. It's not actually arriving at that point, but it's actually recognizing the comparison that is there, that sets up a point of tension, right? The very comparison with anybody, masters, friends, whatever, fellow practitioners, is a point of tension. And the other part of this, and it's something that Andrew speaks about in his research, is he questioned what is it that makes this transformational experience so powerful to people. And one of it is just a hypothesis, but I think it's a very good one. He said that transformational effects actually, or the experiences that go along with that, it could be that the brain is capable of rewiring itself in ways that we don't consider in really short spaces of time, much faster than we consider. And that, as we know, and as he points out, the neural conditions in our brain are constantly changing. And perhaps this sudden surge of activity, or this sudden aha, which is why I'm talking about an aha in every moment, is that perhaps with a sudden surge of activity, these variety of changes and connections between the neurons actually all shift dramatically, so dramatically, in fact, that the entire pattern and network of, the brain's activity and structure actually shifts in that moment as well. Now we know that each neuron can connect to thousands of other neurons. So, and that not all those connections are fully functional, and many of them are kind of just waiting. They're waiting in the wings. They're like actors and actresses in the wings, right, waiting to be called. And so it is possible that and this is why the priming is so important, that it is possible that when you're primed to be open to this transformational aha or this experience, and you're primed to recognize it, then this actually rapidly creates a whole new set of neural connections. Now, I found that explanation actually really quite interesting, because when you consider that for the majority of people, one of two things happens. Either they've had an experience in the past that they're trying to get back to, so that it without good guidance, they're going to be trying to find out where that is, when of course it's just in them, and it's always been there. And when you know how to access it, you can access it every time. Or they're trying to get to an experience that somebody else had, and there's so those are 2 points of tension, and the tension itself actually stops those neurons from finding the new pathway, because in fact it's set up as a comparative, subject object. I'm the subject, I'm trying to get to that object. So there's not and openness only really happens when that subject and object falls away. And because openness means openness, right? You can't just have, I think I'll have openness now, and then, right? It's a bit like saying, yeah, openness is limitless. Oh, except for when I'm searching for that object over there, then I'll go that way. Now, of course, that's not truly open. That is actually really just setting up more subtle subjects and objects, even on the spiritual path. So the power of openness to whatever arises is the secret. The moment that you're truly open and you turn to find the limits and boundaries of openness, well, there are none. It's unfindable, right? So you can't. So true openness, and I've always been present the fact that every single Lama, from the Dalai Lama, Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche, and Mingyur Rinpoche, and Gachin Rinpoche, it doesn't matter who it is that I've studied with, they've all said the same thing. This, right at the heart of the view, is openness. And you really start to understand how much of an aha that is. If you prime yourself with openness, then when the aha comes, you're really open to it. Even that possibility of recognition of beauty and richness in every single moment, you can have that kind of aha. And then the integration comes because you're actually open to the integration. If you're constantly searching for that moment or that experience, the experience might even come, but you might not recognize it.
Right, exactly. And that comes back, I think, to the importance of interoception, that it's not in the conceptual mind, but it's the felt sense. It's that openness to feeling what's present. It's that strongly felt experience, which is transformative, right? And then how you relate to whatever feelings arise, whether they feel good or don't feel good, that openness to the interoceptive process, to these signals and these sensations, and welcoming all of them. So that's that. I think we're so, we talk about this a lot, but we're so used to living in our heads and living in thinking that we don't even realize we're doing it. We don't even realize how quickly we name and label and judge and like and dislike what arises. And so interoception asks us to let go of that and feel, sense, be open and sense and welcome everything that is here now. It's all here now, right? It's not out there. And that's when these deeply felt moments can be felt, when we're really present, open, here, now, in a felt sensory way.
Beautiful, beautiful. It is really an aha, isn't it, Kevin, to think that we and all of you listening, so all of us have the opportunity every moment in this moment, just simply to be open to this moment, to be absolutely present and open to the infinite possibility of this moment. It is such an aha to think that this moment is uncreated. It is an uncreated, open-ended opportunity to explore what's ever present and literally to be, and that requires this awareness of the moment. That's all it requires. It just requires, oh, that's right. I can be aware of this moment and this one and this one. And you literally simply just rest as that quality of openness to every moment.
And everything we're seeking is here now, in this boundless, timeless moment. We can feel that. And it feels exhilarating.
Exactly. Exactly. That's recognition.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you.
And thank you all for watching, and thank you for your practice. Enjoy your practice and be open to what it's revealing. Every moment is a revelation when we're open to it. Bye for now.